Welcome to the YouTube channel. In today's video, I'll be demonstrating how to query a Juniper device using Python. My approach today is not to use SSH, is to use the REST API Explorer on the Juniper box. So the basic requirements will be to have username and password. On this box, I decided to use, since this is a lab, I decided to use the root user as the username. And then I allow SSH using the root user. I enable the REST Explorer, and I also enable port 80 for the REST Explorer. Another important requirement is the IP address. So be it having a management IP address using the FXP0 or an inbound management address. So let's go to Python. The first thing is to have REST installed, and I'm using xmltodict since I decided that I'll be using XML. So let me show you what it looks like to query the Juniper box using the REST API Explorer. So, for example, this is what the interface of the REST API Explorer looks like. And if I want to get the the interface information, I'm just going to use this normally. But since I want to use RPC call, because procedure call, remote procedure call, I will use display XML remote procedure call, and it's going to give me the RPC endpoints to query. So I'll basically just copy that out, paste it in the XML field, in the RPC field. So it says in a single RPC, I'm doing a get request. The format attribute I want it to display my output, and this is the RPC endpoint, the username and my password. So let me drop that, and it gives me this output. If I decide I want to an output in XML, or we can get an output in XML. And if I say I want an output in JSON, I can get an output in JSON. So let's go back to Python. I have my virtual environment. I've installed request, which is very important for what I want to do. And I installed xmltodict to convert the XML output I'm getting from the switch to a dictionary. To import, first thing will be to import request, import xmltodict. I like to use prereqs just to make my outputs a little bit readable. So what is the IP address of the switch I want to query? Let me get that from the switch. And the port I've defined for the Explorer. And let's define a function that queries the switch and prints out the result for the endpoint. So let's say fetch app-table, for example. SQL table, IP address, and port notes. This IP address is different from this IP address. URL, define the URL for the endpoint, so it's going to be HTTP. And user string, IP address, colon my port on RPC. We get the RPC 4 the VLAN for the MAC address table. The MAC address and show EVPN-arp-table. This is what it looks like in plain text. This is a board procedure for display XML RPC. Let's get out there. Let me define the headers, which is shown in the HTTP Explorer page. We have the headers here. I've only been coding that I'm using Yang. If you are interested in me exploring what Yang looks like, let me know in the comment section, then I can drop a video on Yang. Okay. Yang data. I'm using XML, remember I mentioned that. Yang data plus. Okay, so that is done. Then it crops my get request. Response equal request dot get user a URL. I already define my URL. I already defined my headers. I'm using basic authentication. Obviously, in a production environment, you're going to be using a more meaningful authentication approach or type. So my general password is this. And now, since I'm not using any certificate, I'm just in every kind field. So let's see what my responses look like. Response, let me define my if statement in case it fails. The code that was successfully so 100 and return if it's successful, return response the contents. Else, with an exception, and tell me the reason for the failure. Request response dot status code and the reason for the failure. Response by text. Okay, let's test and see what we get. In XML data, because fetch, I have the IP address already, and I have the port, and let's bring that up. Okay, so let's test. I hope it works the first time. Not a bit. Okay, so it gives us this giant text, and this is the root, and this is the body of it. It's just the same thing we have here. This is the JSON format, and this is the XML format. That's basically the same thing here. Yeah, let's go back to Python and try to pass this at least to be a little bit more readable for us to present. The first thing I will do is let me comment this out. First thing I will do is to define another parser function. That will give you the XML data. So that data is going to be converted to dictionary from XML. So XML data.parse and I'm going to convert it to dictionary. Let's see what that looks like. Let's see it. Yeah, so we have a dictionary, and this is the root of our dictionary. This is basically the key of our dictionary. The remainder is root, basically nested dictionary. This is another key, and this is another key, and the key we'll be targeting will be this one because this holds the list that holds the MAC address information that we're getting. So let's go back. So uh, I already mentioned that we're targeting the root. So the root we get data get is it's going to be just a dictionary. So it's either it's as a content or it's an empty dictionary. And the reason why I'm doing that is I want to always make sure that I'm working with a list. So I'm going to define another parser, an helper function, which is just to listify any input I get from, I guess. So if I get X, if X is none, I'm going to return an empty list, and return X if is instance X list, else return list component. Not just an alpha function to help me make sure that I'm always working with the list. So since I add that, I'm going to get my entries. I can spell entries correctly. List define root dot get app entry, and so let's see what the entry looks like. Return entry. Yeah. Basically it cuts around, so we basically drop everything up until this place. So this is the value, this is the key, and this is the value of the dictionary. So now let's get our IP address, MAC address, BRF, bridge domain, interface, and the source. So basically we're trying to get all this information from the switch. Let me comment this out. I'm actually going to do this again. So let me create an empty list so I can append all the information I'm getting. Result was empty for E and entries. IP equals e dot get. Let me get the MAC address. Copy that out. a MAC address, MAC equals e dot get MAC address and VRF equals e dot get VRF out and reach domain e dot get the bridge domain. And interface e dot get the command is active e dot get. Okay, so we've got all this information out just to show you what it looks like at the moment. Let me append everything to result. So we have a result. Let's append all this information as a dictionary. Plus, basically different information. So IP, MAC, VLAN, LVRS, VRF, interface, uh, yeah. One thing I want to quickly do is you see to get the you got the bridge domain, which is basically a VLAN. The bridge domain is the VLAN that the surfaces belong to, but it's written V and the number. So what you need to do is to split out V and the number out and get just the VLAN number. So to do that, you need to manipulate the bridge domain information we got here. So VLAN equals null and V null equals 9. V instance. We have a bridge domain on this string and bridge domain dot upper start with view bridge domain count is widget. Once our VLAN to the interface and integer with domain one else we just want to add is VLAN equals equals HTML. So let's see what that looks like. Let me return result. Okay, let's see. Fingers first. So this basically returns us a list that contains what we have here. So since I said I want to use preprint, so let me use preprint to display it better. Yeah. So we compare. This is our first one. And we can see the information. So basically in this video, what you cover is how to query the necessary requirements for us to be able to query the switch and the Juniper Switch REST Explorer endpoint. I showed you how to get the RPC information. I also showed you how to listify this. So let me know if you have any question. It's always important to try this on your own and try to get the information. If you want me to, if you want this code, let me know. So drop a comment so I can have it posted and the GitHub link posted in the comment section. Continue to follow this page and subscribe if you haven't. Drop a comment. That's always encouraging and helps the algorithm. I will see you again next time. Thank you.